Okay, I want to tell a little story about this thing that happened one time with one of my old friends, Rachel, who, as I'm sure you already know, was my best friend before Ashley. Rachel's Ashley's oldest sister. And rehash, we became friends in 2002, right before I graduated high school. Had a crush on this girl for like the past year, thought she was gorgeous. Would do anything for a chance. And not only did I get a chance, not only did I end up getting to date her, hook up with her, fuck her, but I got 4 years worth of it. For better or for worse. Most of it was for worse because she turned out to be just an abusive, psychopathic piece of shit. I mean, she's just really, really bad news. But, we had a lot of good times together. I loved her, even if she never really loved me. And I would do anything for her. I would have saved her life if I could. And, well, one night I got my chance to do so. So, it's February 2006, and I'm working at Albert's Pizza on delivery. Now, normally my shift at Albert's would end at 11 p.m. And I'm driving around delivering pizzas, and I'm thinking about hitting up Rachel because I wanted to chill with her after work. And I'm debating to myself, should I call her now? It was about maybe 7:30 at the time. Or should I wait till 11? 7:30, 11, 7:30, 11. And then I finally decided, fuck it, call her now. Say what's up. Give me someone to talk to when I'm driving around in the car. Now, another background is Rachel had started smoking a few years earlier. She became a pretty heavy smoker. Despite having a pretty good case of asthma, it's really stupid. Why any asthmatic would start smoking is beyond me. But she smoked like a chimney. And somehow she was able to avoid any real asthma attacks to this point. But I call her up, and somehow she answers the phone. There were a lot of times where I call her and she'd purposely blow off my calls and not answer the phone. Ashley even told me this years later that she'd be with Rachel and phone would ring and she'd be like, haha, it's David again. That loser's calling again. Click. I just hung up on him again. But this time she decides to answer. And she couldn't even speak. She was having an asthma attack so bad, all she could do was just gasp for air, right? She's like, yeah, it was just terrible. I'd never heard anyone having an asthma attack before, and that kind of scared the shit out of me. Especially my so-called best friend is having one. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I asked her, like, are you at home? And she's like, yeah, yes, yeah. And I'm like, okay. You know what? I'm hanging up now. I'm calling 911 and I'm sending the paramedics to your house. Okay? That's exactly what I did. Call 911. Paramedics and the cops show up. But I guess she was so debilitated, so out of breath, she couldn't even get up to answer the door. I guess she was like down in the basement or something. And the cops knock on the door and no one answers because of that. And for some reason, this asshole cop thought I was actually prank calling 911. Cop calls me back and goes, son, no one's answering the door at this house you sent us to, okay? You know calling 911, prank calling 911 is a criminal offense, right? And I got pissed at this cop. I'm like, officer, no disrespect, but my friend is in that house dying of an asthma attack, okay? Can't breathe at all. All she could do is gasp for air on the phone when I just talked to her. Whatever you got to do to get in that house, do it. But please do not tell me, okay, that I'm prank calling 911. That's insulting. And so we hang up the phone. And thank God her sister Brittany was home. She was in another part of the house, so she didn't hear the knocking at first. Brittany answers the door and lets the cops and the paramedics in. They take her to the hospital. And since it's not like a gunshot wound or anything like that, I didn't know anyone could die of an asthma attack if they already have medical attention. Apparently they can, but I stayed at work until 11 o'clock. Then I go to the hospital as Good Sam, in Bayshore. I go to Good Sam and the whole family's already there. Ashley, her sisters Brittany and Sam, her mom, everyone's there. And we're sitting in the waiting room, and then her mom walks inside the double doors, like to go into the ER. She's in there for 5 or 10 minutes. And then she comes out with a tear in her eye. And not only did she have a tear in her eye, but she wasn't speaking, right? And I swear to God, it was like the world just stopped. Like we're all standing there open mouthed, waiting for Rachel's dead to come out of her mouth. Rachel's gone. Oh my God. And finally she spoke, and she's like, she's okay. She's okay. Don't worry. I'm just crying because it's okay. I'm like, whoo! Thank God. Oh man, like I don't even know what I would have done. I mean, wow. And I end up going into where they had her in the ER, and I went into her room, and I was like, thank God you're okay, you're alive. I hugged her and I kissed her, and I told her like I loved her and shit. Told her, you better fucking quit smoking. Seriously, enough. You almost died tonight. How could you have asthma, smoke like a chimney? Like, you need to stop. And she's like, I know, I will. Of course, she quits for like a week and then starts again. And last I heard, she still smokes to this day. It'd be like 17 years already she's been a smoker. But yeah, she was at least alive for that night. And then I get in the car to drive home. And meanwhile, while I was inside the hospital, said February, it started to snow. And when I say snow, I mean a fucking blinding blizzard. One of the worst blizzards I've ever seen on Long Island. I mean, it's just pouring snow. You could even call it like thunder snow. Just blinding snow, just nonstop. And on top of that, I already started getting sick. Like, as I'm leaving the hospital, I start feeling like I got the flu or fever or something. Like, great, my friend almost dies. I gotta see her almost die in the hospital. I gotta drive home in a blinding snowstorm. Now I'm feeling sick. Fuck, can this get any worse? So I start driving home, and Good Sam is an easy drive. It's like maybe 15 minutes from my house in Dix Hills. In good conditions, it took me probably a solid hour, over an hour, to drive home from Bayshore to Dix Hills. I'm doing literally 20 miles an hour on the Sagda Coast in first gear. One of the only times I've ever driven my car in first gear, it's got to be real severe weather to do that. And it's snowing so hard, I literally did not know where I was. I've been on the Sagda Coast hundreds, 1,000 times in my life. More than that. A few thousand times. And all I could see was white. The only way I even knew where I was is I had my GPS. But I couldn't see. Maybe 2 feet in front of the car, and that was it. Somehow I make it home alive, and I proceeded to have the flu for the next 2 or 3 days. One of only a couple of times in my life I ever been in a hospital for being sick, because I don't ever get sick, right? Never. I must have some super strong immune system, but it's 2020. This was the last time I was ever in an ER for being sick. 14 years and counting now. But I was in there for at least one, maybe 2 nights. I mean, I was really bad. Because this is the thing. When I do get sick, it's really, really sick. Like, I can't even walk or, like, pick my head up. And, of course, my parents, my brother come down there to the hospital to see me and look after me, whatever. But, no, I was in there one night in the ER and then one more day in bed at home. And then I was good after that. Well, the second day, I had work at Albert's. Now, John is like a real stickler for people coming to work. You better be basically dying or dead if you're going to take a day off from his store. Because, it's a small business. He only has a few workers. And it's like, what is he going to do if you don't show up? Who's going to do deliveries? And I'm telling John, right, this is at like 9 a.m. or 9:30. I let him know way ahead of time. I'm like, John, I'm sick. I can't come into work. What do you mean you're sick? You can't. You got to work today. I don't have anyone else to do deliveries. Who's going to do them? John, I have the flu. Yeah, I understand, but you got to come into work. John, I have a temperature of like 103. I can barely get out of bed. I'm puking. I can't hold down food. I'm about the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. I work for you, okay, for almost 2.5 years. I have never taken a day off, let alone for being sick. Believe me, John, I am not lying to you. I think you're making this up to get out of work. John, I'm not lying. And me and him went back and forth over the phone up until like at least early that afternoon. Then finally he was convinced I'm really not showing up to work, and he got a replacement to cover my shift. And also, I had to miss school. And Suffolk Community College, where I was going at the time, has this ridiculous gay-ass policy, this attendance policy, where you could only miss 2 classes per semester, per course. Or they had the option to drop you from the class. Yeah, this is how they treat adults in college, right? Really? They didn't do this crap at Nassau, or they didn't enforce it over there. But at Suffolk, they would actually enforce this. Now, most teachers will give you 3 or 4 absences before they drop you. But this one professor, Dr. Gosine, who was one of my all-time favorite teachers, but he was a real douchebag when it came to attendance. 2, he would drop you, no exceptions, right? Well, that was my second absence that semester. So I come into class after I recover, and he tells me what I just said. He tells me what I just said. That he has to drop, I'm sorry, I have to drop you from the class, the rules are the rules. And I'm like, Dr. Gosine, please, I love your class. I would never, skip it on purpose. I had you last year. Did I ever miss any classes? No. I have good attendance in your classes. I had the flu. And he's this Indian guy, right? He's like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you're sick. You're making an excuse. I'm sorry. Like, Dr. Gosine? No. And in the couple of days between where that happened and when he was going to officially report me to the school and have me dropped, my dad just happens to write a column in Newsday. Like I mentioned in one of my other stories, he would occasionally write columns personally about me and my brother, right? And he just happened to write a column about this very incident. Literally about me being sick and having the flu in the hospital. And it was time-stamped. It said exactly when I was sick. So I ended up using that to get out of the thing at work and the thing with Dr. Gosine. Because even when John covered my shift and kind of forgot about it, he's not going to fire me or whatever. He let it go. But he was still kind of fucking with me and giving me shit about it. He's like, yeah, you didn't have the flu, David. Come on, you were lying. I'm like, oh yeah, John? Read this. And he reads my dad's column and he's like, oh, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, John. Like I told you, I never miss work. Come on, man. And then I take it to go sign. He's like, oh, you really were sick? Okay, well, I guess this proves your case, man. I guess you're not gonna get dropped. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, I assumed you were to skip class. But yeah, totally unknowing, my dad, right? He just wrote that column. It was a total coincidence. He didn't know those two things were gonna happen. And yeah, but it ended up saving my ass. But yeah, that was my little story about my one time so-called friend Rachel having an asthma attack and almost dying, me getting the flu on the same night, having to drive home in a horrible blinding snowstorm, and my boss and my college professor both accusing me of skipping out and lying about getting sick, and my dad's column saving my ass over it. What a time. What a fucking time.